I think the best arguments are cosmological arguments. Those have always resonated the most with me. They've always seemed the most plausible and the most difficult to avoid the conclusions for. Um, Particularly, the um, argument for motion, the argument to a first cause, um, the contingency argument. I think those are all good arguments. I like the design argument. It depends to some extent on how it's articulated, but I think in general it's a perfectly fine argument. It's a good argument. I think you look outside, you look in the world, you see order everywhere, right? And order, in my view, is something that needs to be explained. It's not something that you get for free,
Do
right?
you
It's
mean
not,
Aquinas' fifth way, or do you mean like the
I
standard
am
design
talking about
argument of
that. No,
matter?
I am talking primarily about the fifth way. I think
Oh, okay.
I prefer that view or that understanding of the argument to like a watchmaker type argument.
I agree. I was just wanted to clarify.
Okay, sure. But yeah, I just think that all those arguments are good. The ones that kind of take some general feature of the world and show that it's inexplicable without God, right? And that's what all those arguments seek to do. I think they're all very strong. I think that the only way you can really avoid them, the conclusion, in my view, is by denying principles that you would affirm in every other context, basically, right?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
for example, the principle of causality, right? That's something I think everybody believes, except when they see an argument for God's existence, and they're like, "Well, I don't know about that."
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that those arguments are really good. The moral argument, I think, is fine. I think if you are committed, if you are honest with yourself, you're going to admit that that you are a realist about morality. I think that everybody is, you might say, deep down inside, and there are people that deny it. I have a hard time thinking everybody really believes it, believes in moral nihilism, as you called it earlier. I think
Yeah.
everybody does believe that there are objective moral truths on some level, and I think that that usually becomes apparent in situations where they feel like they've been grievously wronged somehow, right? Or somebody that they care about has been grievously wronged. Then they're no longer skeptics about morality, right? So I think the moral argument's good. I don't really see any explanation for objective morality apart from theism. I think I've always liked the argument from desire or from longing
Yep.
that you find in like
Yeah.
C.S. Lewis, and it goes back to Augustine, of course.
Yeah, and Aquinas has a version of it too in his Summa,
Yep,
I think.
yep. So that one, I don't know that I don't think it's as impressive or as philosophically rigorous as or strong as the others, but for me personally, it strikes a chord. It just it's something that makes sense to me on some kind of deep level. So I've always felt like the world doesn't provide anything that's fully satisfactory, right? And for that, but I also feel like it wouldn't make sense to have a desire for something beyond that if there was no such thing. So
Right.
I do feel like that desire is implanted, or that the desire for God is something that we all have, and I think it's evidence that God exists. So I think those are probably the primary ones that I am particularly fond of. There's a lot, and there are others that I probably would also affirm. I mean, I think Aquinas' fourth way is a good argument too. I think it'd be harder for a lot of people to wrap their minds around or to
Same with the third.
understand it. What do you say?
The third one as well. The third
The
way,
third,
like
yeah,
you have to know a lot about generation and corruption, and there's one
right.
premise in there that's like you really have to defend. But
Yeah, I actually think that's the weakest of the five ways. The third one.
that's interesting. My hot take is the first is,
Oh, really?
but
Okay.
yeah, that's I won't get into it too much, but I think that you have to spend a lot of time dealing with physics. You have to spend a
Hmm.
ton of time dealing with that and being like, here's how it works with like the various understandings of time. Here's how it works with like gravity. Here's how it works with a ton of other
Right.
stuff. And so, in my sense, I'm not saying it's unsound. For me, weakness is not just does it work, but also how much work do you have to throw into it to make
Right.
it make
Right.
sense?
I can see what you're
So,
saying. Yeah.
yeah. Um,
Yeah. I feel like that probably the most straightforward one is the second way, right? I mean, that's the one
yeah.
that's probably going to
Yep.
be the easiest to explain and the one that people will be able to
Yep.
grasp most quickly.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go on.
I wasn't really going to say anything, but just that um, I think the fourth is similar to the first in that sense that you were just
Yeah.
describing, and that I think it's a good argument. I think that for modern people who don't think of there being degrees of being, and it's not like a
Oh, yeah.
natural a way that they typically perceive the world. um I think that something either exists or it doesn't, right? And they don't think of
Yep.
existence as coming in grades. um for a modern person, the fourth way might seem a bit counterintuitive, but I think it's also a good
Yep.
argument once you understand the premises, and once if you are able to understand like what's motivating them, or why
Right.
they are why they should be seen as true.